This is a coping mechanism podcast.
This is a coping mechanism podcast.
This is a coping mechanism podcast.
Hello, one and all, and welcome to another exciting episode of This is a Coping Mechanism podcast. I am one of your hosts, Ted Henderson, along with my wonderful co-host,
Bessie, and join us in how we cope with things through the satire life with movies, media, mysteries, and more.
Today we'll be taking a look at season 1 of
So
The
excited!
Strain. I am too. I do love this show.
Good.
We're also going to be talking about the COVID-19 pandemic and a little bit of our experiences with it. As usual, any spoiler warnings, possible content, or triggers will be listed in the description down below or wherever you find your descriptions. Anyway,
So
do we have anything else we had to plug
No.
or talk about? How are you doing?
I'm good. How are
It's
you?
been forever.
I think this was almost like perfect timing to talk about this show. Just because like the eclipse happened.
I know, right?
And just like how it intertwines when I was watching this show, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is everything."
When I pitched this idea, I had no idea the eclipse was happening.
No, and I've had that show, The Strain, on. It's an FX show. I think it's on Hulu. For anyone wondering, I've had it in my queue, like save for later, add to list forever. But then every time I was like ready to watch something, I was like, do I want to commit to that? And then after we kind of talked about vampires and like the whole Alaskan thing, I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna watch it. And I watched that whole first season in one fucking day, which is 12 episodes.
Yeah, I was, so, you know.
And it was so, I just wanted more. It was so good.
I was amazed whenever you came over and we were like, okay, you know, we were doing like a curse thing before we started talking. And I was like, so, how'd you like it? And you're like, oh, it's great. I watched all of it. And I was just like, wait. You watched like, because we've done shows in the you've listened to the show if you know we're like on what episode, like 6, 7 of this show now, something like that.
Yeah, so we usually do like a season of something.
Yeah,
and just kind of like
we've done a season, and then I was like, okay, and then I was like, wait a minute, you watched all of it?
all 4 seasons.
And I was
And I was so sad when it ended. I was so sad when it ended. I almost was like, I might just start it over just to have it on because it was so good.
I never watched the ending, so I watched this show when it started coming out, which was I didn't realize it was 10 years ago. I knew it was like a long time ago, but it didn't feel like a crazy long time ago.
Yeah, it was 2014 it started.
Yeah.
Because it was comic books. It was a comic book series from 2011 to 13. Then they did the book trilogy 2009 to 11, so it sounds like there's some like overlapping.
Yeah.
But then I saw that Guillermo del Toro and Chuck Hogan wanted the books and comics to be completely done before they even touched a TV series. So I think they went in with that plan of like, okay, we'll do this many seasons, it'll be with FX. And even though they had like a lot of adaptions from like the books and comics for the TV show, I still thought it was amazing.
Yeah, I thought,
Even though I haven't read them, if it's anything even close to that, I was here for it.
I was actually interested in reading the books, just because, you know, I really love reading.
Yeah, I almost thought like, I wonder if you read the books or at least the first one.
I didn't know it was books until
3 of them.
Yeah, I didn't know it was 3. I didn't know it was a book until when I was rewatching it for this episode.
Gotcha.
I thought it was just because my only knowledge of the like trivia of how the show came to be was, I'm sure everyone knows Guillermo del Toro.
Yeah.
He's a very he's a like,
You did like Pan's Labyrinth and stuff, right?
yeah, he does very like striking visual movies with like creature design and all this stuff. But he also, this is the only trivia I know, is that he designed the vampires in Blade 2, where the new vampires come up that are much more resilient, and that their design
is very this.
Yeah, the Strain vampires are based off of his Blade 2 vampire design with like the splitting, and
the
like
tongue,
and all that stuff.
Because even when I was watching it, Sito was coming in and out of like me watching it, and I'd kind of like catch him up on a few things, and he kept being like, oh, that's like a Blade reference, oh, that's like in Blade, oh, and I've never seen Blade.
Awesome.
But like,
Bleed's great.
but just like the whole idea of it all, or like the half breeds or this and that, and I was like, oh shit, that's hella cool. But I loved this take of vampire. I guess kind of like you said in our last episode, you mentioned like Strigoi, and that's what I saw them calling them in this, and I was like, oh fuck, okay.
So the show is, especially in the first season especially, but the whole show is centered around this group of characters, two of which are CDC doctors.
And there's like this plane that comes in,
Yeah.
and something's real sus about it, and they go check it out.
And so these CDC doctors are right through the door, and one of they're like, I actually don't know, he's like an assistant or like works there, but Sean Astin, aka Samwise Gamgee,
Yeah, I
he's
think
in it
he
for
was
like a few episodes.
I feel like he was part of the CDC. I just don't know if he was as high level of like
he wasn't
a doctor, epidemiologist like the other ones were.
Yeah, I know he wasn't a doctor, but he was.
But
like,
he was part of their crew,
Yeah.
so he knew kind of what was going on.
But I thought he was really good in it, and it kind of sucks,
Yeah.
like spoilers. But they have to kill him because he gets turned.
But I think
I'm
that's
like-
what like one of the coolest like parts it gave you in the beginning of the show was when he did get like scratched or something, and he already saw that worm, and he pulled it out. But then once there was like one, there was like thousands in
Yeah.
you, and I was like, oh fuck, they're not fucking around.
Yeah, they're like it's a instant disease
Yeah,
that's just once you're
scratched.
infected.
If their blood or whatever gets on you, those worms, it burrows right in you, like if you had it in your hand, and you're just like, well, there it went.
We see that one scene that's like crazy where the one of the survivors of the plane crash is trying to get to her children, and then the maid, the housekeeper's there protecting the kids with her daughter.
She can tell something's off.
Yeah, and then you see the vampire tack team come in and be like, "How's everybody doing?" Or, and they save them, and they're like looking at the kids, they're like, "You look good. It's scary, right?
Yeah.
Scary." They're like, "Are you okay?" And what's that? And she's like, "Oh, I just scratched my hand on some glass." And they're like, "Okay,"
Pop.
and just shoot her in the head with a silver.
Because
stick.
that's when you see that they're not all, in a sense, quote unquote, bad vampires. Because it's like, what did you say? Is the Strigoi like
Yes.
Romanian mythology, or
So-
like you said, some type of
we
Far
talked,
West?
Yeah, we talked about this in our last episode a bit, but I'll go into a bit more depth here. So,
Because I think this is my favorite play on vampires.
yeah, so vampires, as we all probably know, are like everywhere. The idea of a blood-sucking creature.
Right, they're all very pale, and they have fangs and shit like that.
Not only not even just that interpretation, but just a creature that only can that only can prowl at night. It sucks the blood of people and animals, and it
just gains vitality from blood.
Yeah, and they're these
Usually
immortal
like an
beings.
evil kind of spirit.
Even America has its certain beasts, like the Jersey Devil is considered to be, or the Chupacabra is a blood-sucking night living creature. We all have a similar
interpretation
of a creature like this, so it's like maybe they're. But Eastern Europe, like the deep, like grim fairy tales, Eastern Europe stuff, their version is a creature called a Strigoi, which it's Romanian.
I was right.
Yeah, you were right. They are. What I like about Strigoi, though, in context of like what you may think of when you think of a vampire, is they are much more of like the beast vampire.
They gave me like zombie vampire. Is the vibe I got. 'Cause I kept accidentally calling them zombies.
So that's the thing, is that a lot of
it was like hive mind zombies almost.
a lot of vampires have the same thing in their mythology. They just don't touch on it too much. Where those are. Have you ever heard of like ghouls?
Mm-hmm.
So the ghouls and vampire mythologies are kind of joined together, where a full vampire, if it personally chooses to, it can create by, there's different interpretations, which I really actually liked in this one when they show a human getting turned by the big bad vampire.
The master.
Yeah, the master. One of the oldest ones is that they bleed you, and then they put some of their blood in you, and that's how you become a pure.
Because those seemed like I kept calling them like special vampires, where it's like they were functioning enough, even though they still like did what he said, but they looked kind of normal, or they could kind of be out in the day or disguise themselves. They had like more control over their thirst.
Yeah.
And all the street ones who were just like bit by each other with those long tongues were just part of the hive mind of like, okay, infect the next one, infect the next one.
So,
even though they have the really cool spin, I think, of playing with the humanity part of you still, and that's why they go after the ones they love first, because that's just like the human love part.
Again, that's deep lore of vampire stuff, where ghouls are creatures that get bitten by a vampire but are not turned. They go crazy, and they either eat like dead flesh or animals. But
I was wondering if they ate animals, because I feel like that's never touched a lot in any of those type of movies or shows. It's almost like animals are like their last resort. Doesn't keep them as strong. It's like the human blood that does that. Like in Twilight.
I haven't seen a whole lot of Twilight, so I can't really tell you.
There's only a part where, like, in one of the movies, like, the good vamps that weren't with, like, the Vatican were trying to, like, live among humans normally, and they would, like, just hunt, like, the deers and stuff in the wild, even though it wasn't really the same.
I love vampires. My father forced us to watch Twilight. It was actually when we were kids.
Yeah.
It was the first time I said no to him, and I like meant it. He wanted us. It was like we had to watch the first one, and I don't know if it was the second or the third one where I was like, no, I'm not going to watch.
The last one's the best one.
That's what I hear, and that's what he kept saying. He's like, they keep getting better. It's all this last one. This next one's really good.
Better, but I
he
rewatched them recently, and they're so cringe. They're good, but I could watch that last one on a standalone just because it's very actiony with the vampires.
I remember being like, I'm not going to watch the movie. He's like, I told you to sit down and watch the movie, and I was like, no. He's like, are you telling me no?
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm telling you no. I'm like a kid, and he was like, go to your room, and I was like, perfect. Of course. But the whole idea of
going after loved ones.
Yeah, going after loved ones is this. It goes into the spiritual side of vampire lore, where they say that whenever you're becoming one, you're becoming a soulless monster.
Mm-hmm.
In order to kill your soul, you have to kill those closest with you. So whenever they turn you, in order to become the full monster vampire, you go kill the ones you love most, and it's like a severing of your soul. And
that makes sense.
And like
that makes sense.
And then in this one, they're like, the Mr. Satrakian,
the old man,
A-80230384.
Yeah. I honestly, real fast, I loved how they plugged World War II history.
I know, right?
That was such a good, like, I don't know, like a good storyline to add in that, with like how they're trying to take over and they're kind of doing it exactly like Hitler did with the Jews, and him seeing like, oh, I've seen this shit happen before with like mass power takeover. I mean, it was so good.
And yeah, just that the vampire hunter is this this concentration camp survivor, and I love the bit where he's the one who made the coffin.
The fucking coffin that he hand carved.
Right? How crazy is it whenever you find that out?
So good. Do you know in the books that Icor's like his number one man?
Yeah, the Nazi officer.
Yeah, he's not even in the books.
For real?
Like, that's not even a thing.
No, that's crazy.
I know, because he's like one of my favorite characters just because he like is always there doing that shit. Like, yeah, he wasn't even in the books.
Why does he carve? Why does he do that? Is he just like...
I didn't look too much into it. If anything, it seems like the idea of like they had like someone do this, but it's not like he was his right-hand man forever type of thing. He just kind of used him in that time period is what it kind of felt like. But I loved that whole, like, he was a good character.
He was. Of course, is great. I like him as a villain more than I like the master because he's.
Oh, for sure. Especially when he like camouflages himself as a human and puts on that fake neck and everything, and does his makeup. And I was like, damn.
That part was crazy because like I know about vampires. I know like I'm like, okay, the lesser vampires are like these monsters and they're the ghouls. But if the master lets you can stay mostly human, and then they do the scene of him putting on his face, and you're like, oh shit,
like he's just us.
Because
even when the master would take over different bodies, you could tell those human bodies slowly started looking more vampires, or their hair fell out. So you could see that him being in them, even though they were human, like he's infecting his host, and he's still gonna look like it, you know.
Especially
those long fingers.
I know,
like
right?
Oh, those are the best.
I really loved, like, I think one of the reasons why I love the first season so much is because of how grounded it is, as if just like the fantastical side of it is Strakian, who's just like, the vampires are back. And I gotta
and like nobody believes him.
Like, it's gonna get crazy, and
I've seen this before.
Yep, here we go. And then you have this doctor like, this is an organism in the real world, which means it has. I love how they're like, why does Silver hurt it? And then the other doctor, Ava, is like,
Ava.
No, it's the other doctor,
Nora.
Nora.
Yeah.
Nora.
F and Nora.
Yeah, F and Nora. Where Nora is like, well, Silver is made up of these, hard chemicals like nitrates that they're known to like break down ionic bonds in viruses and of these like certain organisms. So yeah, maybe. And I'm like, fucking love you added science, vampires, shit. And they're and they're like, sunlight is
the UV
that's
rays.
true. The UV radiation kills bacteria and viruses, and it's like, okay, you have a virus is a microorganism. You have a macroorganism that's the same kind of thing. Sunlight hurts it. I'm like, oh my god, that's so awesome.
And I think they did a really, in my opinion, good job of like tracing how kind of like the government would respond to something like this. Because, like, it's like a supernatural epidemic, but it's still an epidemic. Like you said, it's the virus.
And we saw that in real life because, like, I don't know. Did you know about COVID before it came to America at all?
Yeah, so I only really heard about it because doing my clients all day at work, a lot of them are kind of plugged into news a lot more than I am. And so I feel like it was like October, November, people started being like, hey, are you hearing about that virus overseas? Like, that's kind of crazy. And I was just like, oh shit, yeah, that sounds kind of scary. And then, early New Year, it was kind of like, okay, this is like really a thing. It's spreading. But I wasn't like scared of it. And I even remember like early March, I went to like a concert. And then like, I think 2 weeks after that, it was like shut down. And I was like, oh fuck, okay.
Why?
So I wasn't like tracking it.
But you were like aware.
I was aware.
I was on it because and it actually really it makes a lot of sense because a lot of your clients you said are like tech people, right?
Right, yeah.
So
or like insecurity and all that tech stuff. So they're hearing about shit way before shit's probably getting leaked.
I heard about it because I don't know if I'm sure we talked about it somewhat, but like I like to build computers.
Yeah.
It's fun, and I don't.
Sounds fun.
It is.
As fun as cutting hair, right?
Yeah. But I like to keep even whenever I'm not building something or like putting together something for someone. Like I haven't built one in probably a year or two, but I still like to keep up on the news and the trades.
Yeah.
So around then was a similar time where I was just like keeping up on the trades, but it was affecting the East so much, and so much of that is manufacturing for tech, and that they were like, and I remember, like, I think it was I want to say like September or it was
Like late fall.
yeah, and like right after like August, like I think around my birthday or so, they were talking about like some people were like, hey, we're having some issues, and then it just kept getting more and more intense until around there where they were like, where they said, hey, I was watching this this tech news show, and they were like, a fab manufacturing company is shutting down due to this illness, and I was like, I was like doing something, listening to the news.
And you were probably like, oh fuck.
And I stopped and I turned and I went, wait, what? And I tapped on my phone to do the rewind, and sure enough, the host said, this entire manufacturing is shutting down. And to put that into context, of people who don't know much about tech, if you're not really into it, you know how they say there's a microchip in everything, and computers and everything,
cars.
Yeah, fab manufacturers
My
are
vaccine.
the ones. Us now, yeah.
Just kidding.
But fab manufacturers are the ones who make all of the chips that process all of that, and there's only 3 of them in the world. And there's like, I think there's, of like the big ones, there's like, I think 1 in Taiwan or 2 in Taiwan and like 1 in China, and now and then Intel has 1, and it kind of sucks, and they want to build one here. And I remember that was like a big thing when the pandemic was going on, and that was part of Biden's push.
Mm-hmm.
Can't remember the word.
Yeah.
I'm blanking.
I'd say that.
But he said, we're going to build a manufacturing thing here, a fab manufacturing plant. And the fact that if one of those shut down, I thought to myself, those don't happen.
Yeah.
Because part of the reason they're over there is because the like work and safety standards are a lot lower, so they can get away with a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're shutting down there, this is real.
Right.
And then another one shut down, and then and then for months they were talking about how they were cycling employees in.
Yeah.
And then a bunch would die, and then they had to shut down again. So like I was thinking, they were reporting in the tech news space death toll numbers at these different manufacturing companies like months before. And I remember what's that guy's name? I care Steve at Gamers Nexus. He was like, this is paraphrasing, but he basically was saying, they're screaming that this is a problem, and for some reason the only people talking about it is people in the tech industry, and we don't know why, but be prepared that this is going to like come here.
I mean, that's just like the show.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm sure any, viral outbreak show, but I think specifically, the Strain really showed how, one, ignorant people were to the idea of like, oh, that can't be here, or that can't be that bad, or 2, how much the government kind of will cover
just,
it up,
push it away,
and be like, well, we don't want people to freak out. But then when you don't do that for so long, then it just collapses, and then everything's in chaos. And
I remember when it started like becoming more noble, like around Christmas.
Yeah,
New Year's
you started
time.
being like, oh shit, people are really talking about it. It's spreading.
People were talking about it, but they were like, it's not going to come to America.
Right.
It's
right.
overseas. And I was like, I remember
There's
having
one motherfucker on a plane.
That's what I was like. I was at work. I was back then I worked at Chipotle, and I remember like they were talking about it. They're like, well, it's overseas, so it's not going to come here. I was like, bitch, do you know how many flights happen every day that come overseas? It's common.
Especially when we didn't even know the extent of like the symptoms, how long it took, like how airborne it was, like all those things played a factor. And I was also kind of, I try not to be in the news just for like my own sanity.
Yeah.
But in general, I was like, I did think the same thing, like, oh, hopefully I don't think it'll come over here. It won't be that bad. I definitely thought the same thing.
I remember being like, this is bad. Why aren't people like freaked out about this? And then I remember Trump at the time, I don't know, you guys could feel it, but the eye roll that just hit was big. But I remember seeing they were talking about watching this other news thing, and they were talking about like a press release where they were like, And it was basically just downplaying the seriousness of it. And I was like, and I remember thinking, how are they downplaying it? It's so many people have already died.
Right.
What's going on? And that's whenever I kind of was like, oh, just like in the Strain, they're like, we have to keep this under wraps because if people know
Freak
how
out.
bad it is, they're going to freak out, which is crazy because then people found out how bad it was
And freaked the fuck
and
out.
Freaked the fuck out.
I can't remember if it was in season 1, because I know the books and comics are like longer stretched out than the show. But I think it was more towards the end of the show that they mentioned from like the time it started in season 1 to like the verge of like there was no more government was 41 days. So I don't know if it was like end of season 1 or 2ish they start mentioning that, because it was kind of like days or weeks we got at first. But the fact that they said it took 41 days for the whole world, no government, like everything just got abolished from these things, it seemed really realistic to me, because I really thought, yeah, if not even sooner than that.
Right,
because that's exactly what we would all turn into. Of like not believing till it's too late. People are still out and about like they were during COVID, and that's what happened.
And then also people turning into like, so that is later.
Yeah.
So like season 1 is only it takes place over only like
A couple weeks.
not even
Right?
I
They
think
had they were like pushing that vaccine. I think
yeah,
like 2 weeks, and they're like, it's only the second week.
yeah. There's no vaccine.
Yeah.
In season, there's no. It's like a week, and they're like the plane lands, and then it's
They
like
let him go home.
they let him go home. Then the next day, vampires start attacking. Then the next day they die. Then the next day they go try to fight the master. It doesn't work. And then the next day, and then so it's literally like
So
a
they
week.
really start believing it as they're figuring it out.
Yeah.
Because I think the whole show, towards season 4, the only thing they mention about time is when they all get kind of separated. And I don't want to give you spoilers, so I'm going to keep it real vague.
I appreciate that.
But they get separated, and it says, I haven't seen you in 9 months. That's all you get. But even in general, that's not a long time. So if all this shit went down in less than a year, that's scary.
Yeah.
And I think that's exactly what would happen.
Yeah, because, like, it's weird to think about because, I don't know, I remember, like, a couple years out after, like, COVID vaccine happened and all this stuff, and it felt like COVID was so recent, but now I think it's starting to feel like it was a while ago.
I still feel some way in the sense of, like before COVID was kind of like the before time.
Yeah.
Just because it changed so much, even though it does feel like a long time now. It's been like 4 years, but I still feel like all of 2020 and some of 21, it was still pretty prevalent.
Yeah.
And it's still around and people are still getting it.
Yeah, I never caught it until last year.
I've never had it. At least I've never had any symptoms.
And I caught it in Vietnam. I didn't even catch it in America.
Right. And I'm definitely not someone who's like I respect everyone's choice of like, if you didn't want the vaccine, that's cool. If you didn't trust it right away, that's fine. But the way it separated everyone didn't help. And I think the show also shows that the people that didn't believe it, or they were like more rich and were untouchable, it showed that dynamic of how it split people up. And it did the same thing just in real life, like now there's it's like a left or right type of thing, no matter what you believe in.
Which is, it's so crazy to me, like the level of effect,
something
fear
like that.
mongering, and then this can affect it. Because I understand not trusting it.
I do too.
I didn't fully trust it.
I didn't either.
Not because it's like, a political thing. It's because if you look at history and us and humans dealing with disease,
like how long it's taken to
to create vaccines, to fight. In fact, if you ever want to be amazed, look at the time frame from whenever COVID-19 was killing people to where there was a viable vaccine versus anything else.
Yeah.
The fact that there was a viable viral vaccine in about a year is a level of scientific feat that is so crazy that honestly I'm like, Yeah, I could see how some conspiracy theorists
sure.
would think that was either intentional or not real or something like that. I'm like, that is a scientific miracle that it was able to be achieved.
In my opinion of it was, I don't know enough about that type of science or any science really to question it enough. And, I was out of work for a while because of it. Like, because I thought my job was, like, untouchable, So, like, my personal opinion on it was, I want to get back to work as soon as I can. I want to keep my clients and their families safe. So I'm just going to do it. And I didn't really, think much after. I genuinely felt like I was healthy enough that I maybe didn't probably need it, but I was doing it more for, like, my clients. Not that they asked, but it was more like, I'm literally in your face cutting your beard. Like, we are breathing the same. Yeah, like, so I'm just doing it as, like, a safety precaution.
So you had full shutdown experience. Like, you couldn't go to work and stuff like that? That's great.
I remember my job literally called me or texted all of us in a group chat and said, just got the notification, barbershops, salons, gyms, last day allowed to be open is this day. And I was like, holy fuck. So I, like, moved as many people as I could to a day. I think I worked, like, 9 to 8 just cutting hair all fucking day, no break. Just trying, because I didn't know how long we'd be closed. We all thought, like, maybe just a couple weeks. And no, it was way longer than that. I think I was out. I mean, it wasn't as bad, obviously, as, like, some people in California and other places because Texas wasn't that strict. But still being out of work for, like, 8 weeks was a long time for me. That was, like, I was like, what the fuck am I going to do?
That's what I was going to say is I had no change because I worked at a restaurant, I worked at Chipotle, and they were like, no, keep working. They didn't even, I remember whenever you'd start going to stores and it was like people wearing masks, they had the shields. We weren't allowed to wear masks. We never got a shield, like that stopper in front of the register. If we wore a mask, we were told to go home. And then it was, which I thought was hilarious because they backtracked
At work you were told that?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
The company, Chipotle, was like, if someone comes in wearing a mask, they are not allowed to wear it on the line or in the back.
Wow.
And I remember being like, that's pretty fucked up.
Yeah.
Are you serious? And then my boss was like, you can look at the email. And it was literally like, this, it's like, hey, this is not this, and they just didn't want their workers to look
right.
They wanted you to see the smile, and all that crap, and be like, it's fine, come in here.
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh no, fuck you, this is crazy dangerous. And they were like, shit, it's real? Shit.
Yeah.
Here's a bunch of Chipotle masks. You have to wear them now. And I was like, fuck you. A week ago, you said we were sending people home who wouldn't work with
that one.
Yeah. And it was like,
I mean, that's same in the show. It was kind of like, there were still people out going to the bars and shit. Right. And I was just like, not that I go out often, but I don't recall, besides just like close family, I wasn't like being out. Like when I went to HEB, I wore a mask because everyone else was, and I felt like that was the right thing to do,
I actually really liked wearing a mask. I
didn't mind it. It never bothered me.
Yeah. I never understood why people complained, and I remember running into people, because it's Texas, of course, who give you shit of being like, why are you wearing that mask? And I was like, why wouldn't you want to wear a mask? And I'm like, me?
Or like, why does it bother you?
Yeah.
It's not you. Which I have a fun story about that at work, but we'll get to that later.
But I was like, I remember I ran into this guy who I used to know back whenever I was doing like ranch work and stuff, when I was in my real redneck days. And he was like, he's like, what the fuck you wearing that mask for? And I came up with I use it, I used it for the entire time, where I'd be like, why wouldn't you want to wear a mask? I don't want all these people, all these cameras identifying me and seeing me.
Ham it up.
Like, this is a real, like, we can just wear a mask anywhere we go, don't get recognized.
Yes.
No one's recording us. This is the perfect thing. And I was just like,
And they were
Great.
like, "Oh fuck, why didn't I think
Exactly.
of that?"
And then they're like, oh shit, oh my god, he's right. And then you're just like you can't. A lot of people, I love them to death, but I've known quite a few crazy people, and I've grown up dealing with crazy people, and I think most people don't understand how crazy people work, and you can't fight crazy.
Mm-mm.
You have to roll with it.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's something you want out of crazy, if there's something you need out of crazy, you don't go head to head.
Yeah, you don't like attack it.
You roll it in.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, you want all these people to wear a mask, prevent spread, they're crazy, they're dumb, they believe this, that, whatever. Roll it in. Hey, this shit works too. Works for this too.
I guess my thing too with it was, like, I respected the people not wanting it just out of like, hey, it's a little too soon to come out with one, and I was like, cool. I
Yeah.
also didn't think that life was going to be like that forever, which might have been also an ignorant thought, but that's what I thought. Like, it'll maybe be like this for a year or two. So my opinion was, okay, if you can't go inside Target without a mask, it's temporary.
Yeah.
Like, why are you throwing such a fit?
That's what I didn't.
So to me, it just felt like a very temporary solution for a long-term, thing that's going to be around. And I wasn't mad about not being able to go out and do this and that, because I was like, okay, well, it won't be forever. That was my thing about it.
I remember thinking,
Like you said, I wasn't fighting people's arguments with it. If you didn't want it, you didn't want it. But I also, if you weren't allowed into Target, I think you should accept it too. It was kind of like no shirt, no shoes, no service, or like bakers allowed to turn away a gay couple's wedding cake they don't want to do. Like it's just what it is.
yeah, it was like it's
if you can't go in, you can't.
I didn't understand people going crazy. I was like, it's private business,
Exactly.
and you don't like.
Again, it just became political.
Yeah, exactly. And I didn't understand. I was like, you don't have a right to go shop there.
Exactly.
And they'd be like, you're messing with my freedom, and it's like, well, you're messing with their freedom.
Yeah.
Because they have the right to say, you have to do, if you want to come into this store,
exactly.
you have to do this. Which that's what everything's based off. It's like, if I have a store where whatever the product is, everyone wants it, but I'm like, in order to come in and get it, you gotta strip yourself down, slather yourself in peanut butter, and walk through the bees. And it's like, I don't want to fucking do that. It'd be like, well, I guess you can't get the gold-plated blah, blah, blah. And it's like,
yeah.
But the people who do, and it's like, that's the whole thing, is if you want to come here.
And that's what I thought lacked in a lot of other, I mean, again, I didn't see Blade or anything, but a lot of the vampire stuff I have watched, I feel like they never, or even the zombie stuff, I feel like they don't play enough into the government's part of it, and this really showed the ins and out of that, or just like how that rich guy
was being like, it's not as big of a
yeah, and he had had his finger in it because he had so much money, and like I liked all that because to me that was the most realistic interpretation.
Right, there's a line where
Palmer, that rich guy.
Yeah, Palmer.
How he could just like buy anyone's vote or get this here. I liked, because that's what feels realistic,
Yeah, I love the
that
scene
corruptionness
where the area director of the CDC, who's like, you see F's
that guy,
boss.
right?
No, remember his boss, the lady who the billionaire kills.
Yes.
So whenever F and the hacker put the PSA out, and they're like, hey, there's a virus, and it's like fucking
serious,
it's serious. You guys need to do something, but it's only like a few seconds. And then the district CDC that lady comes down and is like, oh shit, we have pictures, we have video, we have on the street evidence, this is a real pandemic.
Oh, that one mayor.
Yeah,
it was Manhattan, the one that was like its own little island almost.
Yeah,
and she had kept it clear,
and she's like, hey,
she was the only one taking it serious.
She's like, hey, I'm going to quarantine this. And then Palmer shows up with Icorst, and he's like, are you really going to shut down at the busy season?
Yeah.
Billions of dollars in trade.
Yeah, it all went back to money, and I'm like, yo, if I see a video of a human have this snake-like tongue project out of its fucking mouth and bite someone, I'm not going to work. I'm not paying my fucking bills. You got me so fucked up if you think I'm doing any of that.
And like, the only part about the show that I was like, okay, I don't feel like they're touching on this enough, is them being like, that's not real.
Right. Almost like denying it completely.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Of being
for
like,
sure.
that's a monster.
They're more like, we have this under control, not
Yeah.
denying. Okay, yeah.
Which
for
I
sure.
guess that would definitely be brought up now, because now like the idea of like deep fakes and all this stuff, like that's much more in the zeitgeist.
Yeah.
Whereas back then it wasn't.
True.
So they probably would do that now, but they were just like, people may be sick, but it's not a big deal. And it's like, no, they're turning into fucking monsters. And
don't go out during the night. It's like, oh fuck.
Yeah, right. It's like, and you know, and I remember, I didn't have, my life during COVID didn't change much, because like, I don't like going out to bars and stuff.
Yeah, same.
I don't like.
I guess the only part that got me about stuff like that is like, I didn't have the choice anymore if I wanted to. But I think being out of work, I was with my alcoholic ex, so like being stuck there with him was really shitty, and I already wanted to leave, but that just like really put the cherry on top of like, I can't fucking be with this dude. I can't live like this. So I think there was some positives about shutdown that I think a lot of people realized, even in the sense of like, fuck that minimum wage job.
Yeah.
I'm not fucking working my life. Like, oh, this generation's so lazy. No, I think, one, we're just coming to realize that COVID's really showed us what was important in life, and working for $10.95 an hour wasn't fucking it, you know? And I think that's a good thing.
You're high on that.
Like
$7.25. I remember, I remember like people would be coming in, because whenever I was working at Chipotle and we were not a minimum wage job, and I remember being like, telling people that like, we're not minimum wage, so we require more than minimum. If I got paid $7.25. I would say this in interviews, like, that is minimum wage. That's minimum effort.
Exactly.
You want to pay me minimum? You get the bare minimum of my work and time.
Exactly.
And that's just what makes sense to
more.
me. And I remember I was interviewing an older guy, who
for work.
Yeah, for work. Okay. I was doing an interview to hire him, and then he was an all right guy, but he was an ex-army medic. He worked, and then he was what's it called? An ambulance. He worked in ambulances, like
EMT.
Yeah, as an EMT. And he had like 3 kids and a standard of living where things were getting more expensive, and he just wanted to get another job to make more money and to supplement his income, and to maybe, I don't know if you guys know this, but when you go up in certain restaurant chains, the money you make is insanely high. Like,
I have a client who's a manager of like multiple Whataburgers, and he makes really good fucking money.
It's crazy how much money you make, like not even that high up. Like
just going a little higher.
You run a store for Chipotle, you can make 6 figures.
Holy shit.
And
I wouldn't want to do that though.
Right, and it's like not. But I guess he found out about this and was like, I'm literally killing myself and seeing all this stuff, and I've spent like, he was like, I spent like 20 years working in this field, and I'm barely getting by, whereas I could spend the next 5 years working at this restaurant and working my way up, be making way more money for a way easier job, and I was like, that's great. And then I was giving him that spiel about like minimum effort, and I remember him being like, that's fair, yeah, okay. And then I got into an argument with him because he was during pandemic time where he didn't want to wear a mask.
Got it.
He didn't want to
come obliged by any of the rules, new rules.
He didn't want to do that. He didn't feel comfortable. He didn't like serving people who were like all done up. He kept
Wow.
like talking crap about customers. So I took him in the office and I was like, hey, we need to talk about this. What's the problem? And he was like, I don't know, I'm just getting really irritated, you know, all these people like, and all this shit shut down, people won't even go to work and all this stuff. And I was like, and I remember going, you remember that talk we had whenever I interviewed you? And he was like he went, no, because, you know, normal people don't remember that kind of shit. But I was like, minimum job is minimum effort. Like, if someone said, hey, there's a cold, like the flu can happen year round, and it's a good bit more transferable, just the flu, and I'm gonna put you in a job where you can catch the flu you can just keep catching it.
Exposed, yeah.
And I'm gonna give you $7 an hour. You think I'm gonna take that job? And
That
he was
risk?
like,
No.
yeah, it's like, no, it's not fucking worth it. And
Well,
that's
that half those people don't have insurance, so if I do get really sick, where the fuck am I gonna go, and who's gonna pay for it?
yeah.
Not me.
And you know,
It was just a wild times. I feel like, I mean, I even had a client, because I wore a mask for work for a minute, and I personally never forced a client to wear a mask. Like, I wasn't like, hey, if you don't wear a mask, I will not service you. I was kind of just like, hey, if you don't have any symptoms, I'm gonna wear a mask. But if you're not going to, don't. And I only had one client that, like, never wore a mask, and he tried to say it was some, like, medical reason, but the way he talked about, like, he was those people that was like, oh yeah, it's COVID, I'm going to like a rave this weekend. And I'm just like, oh, so you're the problem.
Yeah.
You know, not even like a, hey, I just don't want to. It's just like, oh, I'm still doing whatever the fuck I want. And I remember, even a little after I stopped wearing a mask on and off with people, I always wore it with him because I just felt like, one, he's just out here wilding. And two,
I'm like,
I think it kind of
nasty either way.
Yeah, and I just think I need to wear it around him. And he's kind of brought up, like, COVID here and there, but I never try to talk about it with people because I don't want to hear your fucking opinion. And he, mid-haircut, one day I was just wearing my mask, cutting his hair like usual. He goes, how stupid can you be to wear that mask still? And
How stupid can you be to bring that up mid-haircut?
That's what I said. I literally responded, how stupid can you be to say that to somebody cutting your hair? And he just kind of backtracks, like, well, I didn't mean it like that. And I was just like...
Okay, I'm holding scissors. So you
And I just said, it doesn't matter how you meant it. I said, you don't just say whatever's on your mind. It's rude. It's called having manners. I might think something about you, I said, but I don't say it to you. I said, that's just the level of respect you're supposed to have. And he was like, well, I didn't mean to offend you. I was like, you didn't offend me. You're just fucking rude.
Yeah.
All this, I'm still cutting his hair fucking casually. Like, I'm gonna let this motherfucker know he ain't bothering me. I can finish my fucking job. And I said, why does it bother you anyway? I said, I'm not making you wear one. I've never asked you to put one on. Even when some of the girls here have complained about you not wearing one, I never put that on you. And he was like, well, you're just, like, psychologically bothering me.
What?
I said,
Jesus
well, if
Christ.
I psychologically bother you, I said, then you can go find another barber. And he's like, wait. And I said, no. He said, are you for real? I said, yeah, go find someone who doesn't bother you psychologically if I'm bothering you so badly that you have to call me stupid. Again, still just finishing his haircut. He was like, well, I really didn't mean to, like, upset you. And I said, again, it's just about having manners. And I said, and you don't have them.
Yeah,
And I finished his haircut, I styled it, and he said, well, thanks. I said, yep, good luck. And that was the last I ever fucking heard of him. I'm glad he didn't even try to fight it.
It was just like...
But I was just like, all the girls, they were like, I would have stopped middle of the haircut. I said, no. I wanted him to know he didn't bother me that bad. That I can still do my job and be
Right,
professional.
you're a professional.
Yeah. And figure it out on your own. Like, you can go find another fucking barber. I mean, he wasn't my favorite anyway, but I was just like, fine, you know, it's a haircut. But after that, I was just like, you got me so fucked up. You got me so fucked that you call me fucking stupid. So it just brought out a lot. And even though people said, like, this shouldn't be divided in families or this or that, it shouldn't be this way or that way, that's just what it is. That's what it became.
Yeah.
And I honestly give a lot of respect to people, personally, that have felt the need to stand strong on what they believe in and cut people off, whether it's friends or family, and be like, yo, we can sit in the same room and maybe not agree about some things, but hey, if your boundary is I'm not gonna be around someone like that or who thinks that way or whatever, I respect that.
I remember
It was just a wild time, I feel like.
Yeah. I think the worst situation I was in COVID at all was, like I said, for the most part, my life didn't change much. You know, like, all of my friends were very conscious, and also we didn't go out, and we only hanged out with each other.
Right.
And if anyone started to feel sick, we shared tests, like, with each other in the group.
Yeah,
like, if someone got some, they'd be like, hey, you want to test?
Mm-hmm.
And then if they didn't, if they popped, they wouldn't hang around for the 2 weeks, and then they would come back.
Just being responsible.
Yeah.
Like, that's all I personally feel like was being asked. And if you were not wanting the vaccine, which I think was fine, I still think you had a responsibility to not just be doing a whole bunch of wild shit, you know, and complaining and starting fights and fucking coughing in people's faces, like videos we saw. Like, that shit was so wild, it felt like it was like a different dimension.
I know. I saw that stuff and I was like, that to me is the exact same thing as if someone had AIDS and then cut their hand open and was slapping people with blood.
Or just, like, again, have AIDS and you're having sex with people unprotected.
Yeah, and it's,
you know,
like,
shit like that. Like,
I'm like, dude.
Like, if you had your little circle and you didn't go from that, whether you got vaccinated or not, I think that's responsible. And that's what I was doing.
And
even with clients, like, at first I didn't even cut beard trims for a long time because I wanted their mask to be on, and I just learned how to get all nifty with my hands and cut around a mask and shit, and, you know, it was crazy. And I think the show showed, just like people were hoarding fucking toilet paper, that show showed the exact same thing people were gonna do.
I love how in the first season they show that, but only in, like, they don't focus on it. It's just happening around them.
Yeah.
Where, like, remember where the kid's going to go get Nora's mom the cigarettes? And there's people, like,
looting.
Yeah, looting all around him.
Mm-hmm.
There's, like, the lady at the cop car.
And it still hasn't hit people yet.
Yeah, and this
like,
is,
there's
like,
no internet. Like, shit is, like, off the rail.
Right? And it's like, it's just... I remember the whole toilet paper thing was crazy because it kept going up, like, the bulk packs would go up on Amazon, and I had there's a Twitter account that I follow called Cheap Ass Gamer, and they post video game deals, and he started posting toilet paper deals during that time. He was like, and he'd be like, the ass part in Cheap Ass Gamer, and I remember just buying, like, a bulk thing of toilet paper would pop up, and then I would go to work and I would be like, hey, does anyone need toilet paper? Because I bought a case of it. And then
my mom was one of those people that ordered toilet paper, paper towels, and soap. And she kind of does still to this day. Like, just go to Sam's Club every weekend and gets a whole fucking thing of paper towels and toilet paper. I can't tell you the last time I've ever bought paper towels or toilet paper. Because I just go to my mom's, and I'm like, oh, here's your fucking stock in your garage. Oh, you got some Dawn dish soap? I'll take a few. Like, that's just her mentality now.
That's the way, you remember Sebastian's parents were.
Yeah.
Like, they never got hit with it at all, because they had a...
Yeah, they're like, oh, I'm stocked for a year.
Yeah.
Regardless.
Which, you know, and and I remember, like, learning, that's when I learned, like, oh, people as a group are stupid.
Oh, yeah.
We
would just kill each other. We don't even need a virus.
Right?
we would just do it to ourselves.
I remember there's a line in Men in Black that I adore where he's just like, where Tommy Lee Jones is like a person. It's reasonable and you can talk to him and understanding. People are wild, unpredictable, you know, and crazy.
Exactly.
And then he's just like, and I remember seeing that, like, at the store where it's like,
yeah, people fighting over shit.
Yeah, like someone was bringing out
where you could only buy
a shipment of bread and, like, locusts.
Yes.
Like, it's like those time lapse videos of, like, maggots or something.
Just like
on something,
feasting
just
and
like
taking it.
whoosh, and then gone,
gone.
and it's just bones.
Those derma beetles.
Yeah. And I remember being like, the only limitations I had at any point in COVID, another thing was that as a working at a corporate restaurant, we got bulk cases of toilet paper,
Oh, I bet.
and like we would order those and just pass. The managers would just take them,
That's what I would fucking do.
and I would buy those like cases of toilet paper, and like the crew, I'd be like, hey, if you need some, I got it, and I would give some of those, or like my friends, I'd be like,
Yeah.
I can't get any, be like, here you go, I got a case,
Yeah.
take.
Or like water. I remember at one point, I think the only thing I could really buy was like eggs. And I would just eat eggs because like so much shit was either off the shelves or couldn't be restocked fast enough. And I was just like, I guess I'll live off eggs. And I think I ate out quite a bit at like Chick-fil-A because they had the food. So I was like, I'll just go fucking buy it.
That's the thing, like we never had, when those contracts had to be filled.
That's
so
true,
it's like,
yeah. I mean, even like small moments, like I don't know if you ever heard of like Firefest. Like
I have.
Even
I'm fascinated by fire.
But like even stuff like that, like I remember watching that little documentary, and people started like hoarding beds from each other, and that was just a festival over a weekend.
Right.
So that's how fast we turn on each other.
And that's what was crazy. Is I remember thinking like, oh, the problem isn't that there's not enough of it. It's that
we won't share.
There's always been enough, and people just always bought what they needed. And the second they stop doing that, it goes to shit.
Yep.
And it'd be like, I remember seeing like, if you just bought the toilet paper you needed, it would be fine. And
that's what was crazy.
And I mean, like, and my dad, he fell into it too.
I mean, it's easy to, and I totally get it. But
he's still using soap that he bought
right.
for COVID.
Or like, oh god, hand sanitizer. And I remember my job had that hand sanitizer when we went back that literally just smelled like vodka or tequila or whatever, and I was like, I don't want to put this on my hands. It's just fucking straight up alcohol. But all that was so scarce.
I was so worried. I was really concerned. But for the most part, I think, like they said, if you were healthy and like COVID wouldn't really affect you that much. But it was, if
it was
you
those
had
long-term effects that scared me.
Yeah.
Or like losing like your smell or taste, and some people didn't get it back forever. They still couldn't breathe right. I was like, that sounds more scary than the sickness for 2 weeks.
That was just what I was going to ask you is, I have a couple personal experiences that I want to talk about. I wanted to ask if you had any personal experience of anyone, either you or anyone you knew who like got hit with that kind of stuff.
Really sad, actually. One of my clients, he missed an appointment, and he never misses an appointment. And, so I had just like kind of texted him like, hey, you had an appointment today, you missed it, but I hope you're okay. And I didn't really like hear back, which I thought was weird because he was like very like on schedule. And so I just texted him again, just like, hey, this is not for you to feel pressure to come get a haircut by me if you found somewhere else. I just want to know if you're okay. And I mean, I tear up just thinking about it. His dad texted me back from that number and said Patrick died from COVID, and he was like a fucking 30-year-old CrossFitter, and I was like, oh my god, like if that could happen, like that's scary, you know, whether he had underlying issues or not. I still was like, whoa, that was close,
That's first off, you okay?
Yeah.
You need a minute?
Yeah, no, I'm good.
Okay. I remember thinking like, okay, this is kind of bad, but like
manageable.
My dad has respiratory issues.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a lot of health problems, and I was worried about him. And and I remember thinking, okay, well, as far as stuff's going, he's got multiple oxygen concentrators, oxygen backups. He has BiPAP machines, which can work as like pseudo respirators, not like great. But if something happens, I was like, he'll probably be fine. But then my friend Hamtaro got COVID. He was the first person I knew that got COVID. Got it early because he works he's a prison guard. So, as you can imagine, the second it went in there, wildfire.
Oh, for sure.
All the guards, all the inmates, everything.
That's how it was in the show.
Yeah,
Does
exactly.
it show that?
That's what I was just about to say. It hits
Like enclosed like that, trapped.
The scene where, like, you know, the guy's getting sick in the prison. I was like, I was like, oh my god, this is like exactly the stories that my friend was telling me. But when he caught it, he was, you know, he works, like you said, he works out all the time. He was a guard, so like he's walking stairs
Right.
10 hours a day, walking back and forth on his feet.
Like active enough.
Yeah, and he also, like, he lifted weights, he did cardio to, like, keep in shape because he works at a maximum security unit, so he's
defend yourself.
yeah, he's a tough sort. And I remember he called me on the phone and was like, "Hey man, I'm just calling to let my friends know and everybody, I got COVID. I popped on it the other day and I'm not feeling well, and I just want to, like, let you know, like, where I can't be hanging out or doing anything." And I was like, "Okay, man." And I remember he was kind of freaking out. I was talking through it, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm really feeling rough, and I can't." He's like, I would get shit for it.
Yeah.
But, like, people in my unit are it's bad. Like, I didn't know it was this bad. And I was like, "Dude, you should put it," I was like, "record it." Because, you know me, like, that's like my head goes to it. And I was like, "Record it, put it on your Facebook, do something, do something." And he was like, "That's a good idea." And then every day he record updates and put it on Facebook. And he got, like, a little bit of notoriety for a time because he's a in shape guy, and he's,
Right, and it still got him.
And he's also, Southern dude, kind of country boy. A lot of his people, not to generalize, I'm that been in that circle a long time.
A big chunk of people in general
just didn't take it seriously, and then he has a recorded descent into how bad it got, and it got so bad that, like, one of his recordings was only like 5 minutes and he was just wheezing. And I remember after everything was said, and, like, I was getting a little I honestly felt bad. I told him to do it because I was like, did I just tell my friend to record himself dying? Yeah. But thankfully he got out of it. But when he went to the doctor, they were like, "Okay, your lungs are never going to be the same again."
Yep.
He was like, "You have scar tissue on this much of your lungs. Being as though you're active, after a few years, you will gain some of it, but you will never have the same lung capacity, and you will you'll always feel this tissue."
Yeah.
And he says that he had to take a different job because walking the stairs of
just too
the
much
towers,
cardiovascular.
Yeah, he said that he could feel, like, the pop of his scar tissue in his lungs, and it hurt him.
See, that's what scares me more than anything.
Is just like
the long-term effects of being sick.
Yeah, my friend Twitchy, I don't know if you noticed, a lot of my friends nicknames. He still can't smell.
Really?
Been 3 years. He never got it back. He works for the city water system, and he was working on an underground water line, and his supervisor came in screaming, but he couldn't hear him because he was wearing a gas mask. It turns out that there was a gas leak.
And he couldn't smell it.
Yeah, he couldn't smell the gas, and he almost died because...
Just the fumes of it.
Yeah, but he just couldn't tell.
Yeah, that's
so
scary.
Like, and I remember the Hamtaro incident happened, and Easter was coming up. And I have an older brother, I have a niece and a nephew, and I won't go too into the story, but my dad wanted them to come over for Easter holiday. They're young kids. He had bought, and he buys, like,
baskets and stuff.
Baskets, candy, eggs, like, months in advance, and wanted to come over. And my older brother was taking it very seriously. Father, not take it seriously, didn't fully think it was a big deal. Even though he was the prime risk for it.
Right.
And my brother didn't want to bring everyone over because, he's got kids, they're in daycare, he worked in a public, him and his wife both work in public industries, and he finally, like, my dad finally convinced him to come over, but just to, like, see him, and they came over, like, en masse, and I remember it just turned into this big thing.
Exactly.
Where it was like, we all had to, like, plead to, and be like, dude, we're trying to keep you safe.
Right.
We're trying to make sure that nothing happens to you.
Yeah.
Like, this one experience is not worth your
if it kills
life.
you, yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, I knew it was bad from my friends, because
Yeah.
I have had friends who their family members died. I knew
Mhm.
people, like I just said, I've known people, but I didn't catch COVID until, like I said in the beginning, until last year in Vietnam.
Yeah.
And
Which is crazy.
yeah, and I got to tell you, sure, it felt like a lot of similar symptoms that I was seeing in that show.
Yeah, exactly.
Of, like, I remember seeing the guy, I don't remember his name, but
was it the husband?
No, the big fat Hispanic guy.
Oh, yes.
But where he starts to turn, and whenever
When they're living with his mom.
yeah. And then they get arrested, and they're in the jail cell, and he's laying there, like, bone pale and shaking, and I was like, that's exactly what it looked like. What happened to me?
Yeah.
I remember.
It seems like a lot of those virus movies or ideas, or even real life, like, they all kind of have that same effect on how you start getting sick.
I guess it's just an easy thing to get right.
I think so.
It's it's so recorded that it's like, okay, we can make this real. All we have to do is do this, and it's real.
What do you think of, like, doomsday preppers around, like, your experience through this, seeing stuff happen in just, like, TV shows and movies and stuff like that?
So, I don't consume a lot of media outside of video games.
Mm-hmm.
And I like reading
Books,
but so I don't watch, like, I don't watch reality shows.
Right.
I don't see, like, stuff on YouTube. But my context did come where I didn't know.
Just because in the show, you see those rich people have bunkers and stuff.
Yeah, like, they have bunkers. You see people hoarding. You see people, like, setting up. Even Satrakian, who lived his life in it, like, has this, in the first season, he has
a secret room, and they can't get in, and I have all this medicine.
Yeah,
and
weapons,
food.
medicine, food, all this stuff, and you're like, and I was like, I knew that stuff existed, but I always thought it was like, oh, it's in the TV show. And
I mean, they have that
like,
cheesy ass show, like Doomsday Preppers, which just shows you, like, different people for, like, different things, whether it's, like, a tornado or a virus or a hurricane.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah.
Until, I knew that existed, but I thought it was, like, movies and like some kind of crazy people.
Yeah.
But then when COVID was, like, mid-swing,
Yeah.
my dad fell down that rabbit hole hard.
Mm.
And
I mean, they still do to this day on social media, like, fill or push that.
yeah,
Like, oh, you need a backup generator. Oh, you need this type of emergency kit. And people are like, oh shit, do I need one of these,
exactly. And I remember he was, like, gonna get land and a bunker.
Wow.
And I think he actually got the land. And then nothing happened, so he didn't go and then he sold the land to got rid of it. But, like, part of, but I would like come and, like, I would hang out with him. He would be watching these, like, YouTube videos and, like, all, and this I got exposed to a market of products that I did not know existed. And it kind of blew my mind. But some of it is reasonable.
For sure.
Like,
I think stuff with, like, power outage or, like, some food shortages, or if, like, you do grow your own stuff is cool. Or, like, extra medicine. But my whole idea is, for me personally, I don't want to survive some, like, post-apocalyptic world, whether it's a virus or zombies or a natural disaster. I don't think I'm built for it. And I don't want to, I'm already stressed, like, right now in life in general. I couldn't imagine being on the verge of, like, chaos like that with, like, no rules, no nothing, you know, like, you know, Walking Dead style or the
Yeah.
Strain style, like, just trying to find fucking antibiotics or vitamin C because we're you know, like, all, I don't want to do that.
A person is one of the most dangerous things you
so
could
like
possibly encounter.
shout out to, I think, people who prep for that, but in the long run, I am more curious on why they even would want to survive it.
Yeah,
I don't want to repopulate Earth.
it's just human nature.
It is.
Survival.
It is.
But, and you know, like, I'm not trying to dog on people. You know, if that's your deal.
That's your deal. That's fine.
Yeah, and like again, some of it has merit, like the power banks and generators and stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Like I said, my father, he's been ill for a long time. He's on. He needs like machines.
Yeah, for his ox.
And we've had horrible power outages that lasted long periods of time, and those power stuff saved his life.
Yeah, I think those kind of like meant for temporary things are really good. Again, it's just one of those things of like, I don't want to live in a life like that. Because I don't think any show or movie depicts well enough of like
the desperation of these people.
Yeah, that, and just like how much and how long it would actually retake to rebuild civilization. I'm not here for it.
Yeah.
I'm just not, and that might sound selfish or something, but I'm really just not here for that.
And you know, it's
COVID was enough. I don't even want to live through something like that again.
Right? COVID was enough. Imagine if every time someone caught COVID, they became a vampire.
Exactly.
Monster.
And some shit shot out of the throat, sucked the life out of you, and then turned you.
Right.
No. And then I lose all my hair.
Right.
And then look all nasty. No,
you
thank
have
you.
great hair.
Exactly. That's not gonna happen to me. I'm gonna be like Icehorse in this bitch with a wig and a lace front and fake face. And
getting that nose just
exactly.
Right. It was. I remember liking this show a lot whenever it first came out, but it was like, it felt so much realer watching it now, being like, oh, the plane that brought in the illness, like the plane that, like, they zeroed in on the flight that brought COVID in to America. Everyone kind of truncating it and being like, it's fine, it's not that big a deal. Like, shit, and that's what I think also interests me and kind of freaked me out whenever I was watching it, is there was enough parallels in human history that whenever they wrote it, like, they don't just write this kind of thing out of nowhere. They do a lot of research. They try to make it as believable as possible. So they were able to easily, just based on the human condition, be like, this is probably what it'd be like. And guess what? That's what it was.
Exactly.
And, I don't know. It just freaked me out to be like, this could happen anytime. It can happen. It can happen again. It will happen again.
Fast.
Yeah, and it will. I talked about it in the beginning about how, like, the build up to COVID, I think for most people was instant.
Yeah.
Where it was like they heard about it and they were like, oh shit, shut down.
Yeah.
Shit's changing. No food on the shelves. Oh yeah, this is just a fun thing. I will say this, that I did make, because you couldn't get meat very easily.
Yeah. I ate eggs.
They always had the weird meats at HEB and no one was buying it. So I made heart stew. I made some stew out of beef heart.
Yeah.
Or tongue. I've always loved tongue, and I was
like
pretty
it in
excited
tacos.
that no one was taking the tongue.
Oh. You can
Took
use
that
everything.
Tried making chicken feet. I didn't like it, but I tried.
Survival.
But like, the heart stew was.
That sounds kind of solid.
It was not. They liked it, but the blood organ.
Yeah.
Got a lot of that. Blood has like that iron taste.
Yeah.
That was pretty prevalent. I tried to cook as much out of it as I could, and I got okay, but like, that was the thing, is I think like you said, I don't know if I'm if I'm one of those who could survive.
Yeah.
But like, I'm pretty good at making do. You know what I mean? Like if this
I think it's just quality of life for me. To me,
Yeah.
that's not quality. And I would be okay with like, okay, well, I lived however long, and I think I want to go out on a as best way as I can instead of like in this turmoil.
I would look back on my life and go, is it any different from this time? That was pretty bad. It's not all that different. This ain't all that different from the hard times. I'm sure it'd be fine.
I think the scariest part, like, for real, would be, like, of course, they never depict, like, gas will expire.
Yeah.
And, like, once you are out of, like, that kind of modern medicine, people are just going to die because they're sick and there's no medicine for it. Just like back in the day. You could live, but living to 20s, 30s was a long time. So it might just be that all over again.
Yeah, there's whenever I originally pitched this idea for this episode, my original idea was to do The Stand.
Yes.
Because, and then I was like, oh wait, Strain has a lot of similar themes as The Stand, and I think it'll be more of a fun experience because it's vampires, so I'll love it. It's a lot more hoary, so you'd enjoy it.
Hoary.
Hoary, yeah, horror-y. Which I am glad that you really enjoyed this. I'm glad I picked a winner for you.
It was so good.
But
so good. I don't feel like it has the notoriety it deserves.
I know, right? Like, you think it would be a lot more...
And even, like, the Reddit forum, people kind of, like, dog on it. Like, oh, it's not like the books, or, oh, they changed it up too much, or there's too many plot holes for this. And I was like, no. This is the one time I was like, fuck all that. This shit was good regardless. And I know around that time, kind of, like, Sons of Anarchy, Walking Dead, probably, like, Bates Motel, and all those were kind of happening for, like, FX. But, man, this shit should be way more popular than it was.
Right? Like,
especially for, like, top tier of, like, characters to fucking hate, like, people like Joffrey, Zach, his little son.
I know.
I wanted to fucking murder him.
He's
different in the book than the show, but in the show, him being like, no, that's still my mom, and I'm like, she's not your fucking mom.
I know. I don't, like...
It pissed me off so bad.
That did frustrate... I'm glad you brought that up, because that did frustrate... Oh my god. Because... if they showed the mom in the beginning where she's like still has her hair and she looks like them, I'd be like, okay, sure. But in the end of just the first season where it's like hairless and bloody and like, I'm like, no, that's a fucking monster.
Exactly. Like, you watched that tongue thing project out of your mother's mouth, eat a little boy, and her be like, sorry, honey, I just have to do this to survive. I was just like, you think that's your fucking mom? Like, get out.
I don't...
Get out.
Like,
if I was the dad, I just probably would have killed him, even though that sounds terrible.
And just being like... But,
like, he was making things worse, and it was pissing me off.
That's what I don't understand about,
humanity.
Well, yeah, also. But, like, monster stuff and zombie stuff and all that stuff, whenever it's like they get turned, and then they're like...
It's still them.
I can't believe it. I was like, no, they're dead.
Yeah.
They're dead. They died. That's sad. It's sad that they died. It's not sad that you have to put down this monster.
Yeah, because even a lot of even strangers that they met that they were fighting with when they got bit, they're like, don't let me turn. Like, just do it now while I still have my humanity. And I respect that.
I don't know why they kept it. Because it felt like in the first season when... Samwise Gamgee gets turned, that's like, okay, this is the standard, this is what you're setting in the show.
Yeah.
Is like, it's better to die than it is to turn. You've done it early.
Yep.
So we have an expectation for the rest of the show that anyone we see who gets wormed, gone.
Exactly.
And they don't really do that. They keep up with this.
I mean,
that's this person.
Well, still, even the mayors would do that. Not that lady mayor that was like, oh, I'm going to just shoot everyone who's infected. They're like, you can't do that to people. And she's like, they're not people.
Right.
What are you not getting? I do kind of wish, like, I'm sure in the books it does, we got a little more glimpses of, like, everywhere else. But I know we were following that main, group and, like, CDC, which was fine. But later on, I think in season 4, they show kind of like, or 3, they show clips of around the world ascending into chaos with like more vampires. But I think little spin-offs of that would have been kind of fun if they got to like have like longer seasons. But I think anything after 4 or 5 seasons kind of starts to go down.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of glad they just kind of nipped it, because it was like the same shit like happening. Okay, you chase the master, you can't get him. You chase the master, you can't get him. Like, okay, I don't want that forever.
Exactly.
I don't want that for 12 seasons like The Walking Dead did.
I really like concise shows.
Yeah.
You know, like I've been watching Supernatural. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but I liked it a lot whenever I was younger, and so I've been trying to like, but I never finished it because the show ends at season 5. The guy who made it was like, this is where it ends, but it made so much money.
Right.
That
Just like Game of Thrones, and nothing's finished, and then it's not good.
But that was the thing, is like, that show ends, and then it keeps going.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but I wanted to like see where it actually ends.
Yeah.
Also, there's an episode with Scooby-Doo that I'm here about. I haven't seen it, but I'm very excited about it. But I'm like, it's making me dream of, I love just things being concise.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, if you're gonna tell an intense dramatic story or anything, let it be done.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Don't drag it on.
That's why whenever we did the Handmaid's Tale episodes, and I was like,
true.
there's how many, it's still no. I was like, it's, and then whenever I did the research, and I was like, oh, the book is the first season, and that's the thing?
It.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, I got the cliffhanger solved for me. Good.
Yeah.
Done. Boom. I'm never going back.
I mean, I did this, I still watch that, but like, even like The Walking Dead, like, I got to season 8, and then I, like, last year I was like, I'm gonna rewatch it and finish it before they do all these spin-off shows I think I would like. I literally got to the same season, like 8-ish, where like Negan is, and I literally couldn't get past it.
Same. Yeah.
I literally was just like, this just went on too long. They're not really giving you any more, and I'm just kind of over it. And so I was just like, I probably just will never finish it. So I'm glad this was born, done. If you want a little more backstory, read the books and comics, and that's it. Like, we gave you what we finished, and I think that's what shows should do. Like, don't release it until you're fucking done.
Yeah.
Just so you have a start and finish, and there's not all these weird filler shit.
Yeah, because you can tell.
You can tell.
And I get it, it's money, and that's makes the world go around. But it's like, dude.
But you ruined something, then we talk shit about it for the rest of our lives.
Right. And then, all everyone's going to talk about is like, oh, yep. Walking Dead's good. For a little bit.
I mean, that's what happens with Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Oh, it's great. Well, the fucking ending sucks, and I'm like, ugh.
It's great for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then versus something like this, where you're like, it's just great.
It was great from start to I mean, there was some things that I was a little like, for the hype of it, it could have been done up a little more, but I wasn't. Again, at no part, only thing I was ever mad about was his son being a little shithead.
Yeah.
And that was the whole point, which made it good. You know, like, you were supposed to not like him.
He was supposed to be
hateable.
Yeah.
He had a punchable face. He had a hateable personality.
He doesn't get he's not too bad. He's annoying in the first season.
But he gets worse.
Yeah, but he just gets worse.
So much worse.
Yeah, like I watched the second season, and I think I started
the third.
Yeah, but I don't remember any of it. All I remember about the third season is that they let him take off his wig. Which, I don't know if you know, the main character, he's bald in real life.
Yes.
And
yeah, you could tell it was a fucking lace front.
Yeah. And
at least I could. In the beginning, I was like, it's like a lace front. And then, second season, it was really dark. And I was like, what do you do? Fucking dye his hair? And then it's gone. And I was like, oh, he's naturally bald.
Yeah. He's
and he looks way better.
Yeah, if you've ever seen Ant-Man, he's the bad guy in Ant-Man. And he's bald in real life, which is not a problem. But I remember being like, when I watched it originally... I don't know anything about hair. You're a professional, so I could
just
you could see
notice,
it immediately.
little things like that.
But I remember when I watched the show originally, I was like, why is that guy's hair messed up? That person's hair is messed up. His hair is perfect. And I honestly thought, I was like, this actor is like some jaded dude who's like, if I'm on screen, I have to look good.
Yeah.
And I was like, and then I later found out, I was like, oh no, they're making him wear this wig. He's bald. And
then he'll shave it off.
Yeah. And then they're like, they want him to the character has hair. So he has hair. And whenever the third season started, I was like, thank God.
It's gone.
Because the wig gets shitty in two. And I was like, oh,
it's so
fucking
dark.
take
I'm
the wig
like,
off.
Ooh. But overall, I mean, to sum it up and bring it all together, The Strain is now one of my favorite fucking TV shows. Thank you for mentioning it again to be like, alright, I just need to fucking watch this if Ted says it's good. And let's hope in our lifetime we never have to experience some shit like that or something
Again.
like COVID again.
I would never catch it again. I thought that shit was gonna kill me.
Exactly.
I felt like my bones were trying to escape.
So yeah.
Not exaggerating.
I believe you. So, if you're sick, stay home. And when you feel better, go out. Period.
And that's not even a COVID thing.
Exactly. That's
Just
just
in
a
general.
in general thing. And so you guys need to watch The Strain. There's a lot we did not give you, and
Yeah.
I think I'm just gonna rewatch it just because it was so good.
I'm gonna finally finish it.
And yeah, you want to plug anything?
Yeah. First off, check us out on podcast services. Please rate us, review us. Please check us out on YouTube, TikTok, on Patreon. If you like what we do, go over there, check out, maybe throw us a buck or two. We would really appreciate it. It helps us out an insane amount, more than you think a dollar could. If you want more of me, if you like my voice, you can check me out at youtube.com/thesocialnerds, sometimes at twitch.tv/socialnerds. You can follow me at Ted_or social nerd, something like that. You don't have to do that one. That's fine. What about you? Anything you want to plug?
No. Just follow us on TikTok, share us.
Yeah.
It's the most free thing you can do is just share our content. Super appreciated. And as always, just come back for our next episode.
Also, if you have any ideas for topics,
Yes,
put it in the
drop
comments.
those. Drop them.
All right.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Be safe.
I love you.